What's going on, YouTube family? Today we have an absolutely insane video for you guys. We're going to be talking about Carvana. Now, the Hindenburg research team just dropped an article titled Carvana, a father and son accounting grift for the ages. Now, all this stuff is, of course, allegedly, but I'm going to get into it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what's going down, how this is going to affect Carvana moving forward, and give you the whole story behind Carvana, because I've been making videos about Carvana for over 2 years, and a lot of stuff I see in here I can agree with. So let's talk about Carvana and its whole business model. Now, they were supposed to revolutionize the automotive industry by selling cars 100% online. But here's a spoiler alert. Every single dealership in the United States can sell cars online. Even my small independent dealership, if you were shopping on my website, I can e-doc you all the finance paperwork, and then I could ship the car directly to you. So what is so different from a small independent dealership like mine and a massive company like Carvana? What's the fact that they labeled themselves as a tech company? And I know they did that on purpose, because with tech companies, you can get billions of dollars from Wall Street. On top of that, tech companies, all they care about is getting market share. Give me all the money. I'm going to eat up all the market share as I can. Even if I'm losing, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, that's okay, as long as I'm gaining market share. But it's the exact opposite for the automotive industry. We are taught to put up processes and procedures because our industry is one of the few where you can lose millions, if not billions of dollars extremely quickly. And unfortunately, Carvana found that out the hard way. So let's talk about Carvana as a whole when it comes to business. Now, I'm going to talk about all the front-end operations they did that's caused them a lot of money, which I believe is causing them to do all the shady stuff that the Hindenburg report allegedly is accusing them of on the back end, and how this all plays together. Now, let's start off with buying. Now, every single dealership needs to buy cars. Now, Carvana's claim to fame was they have an algorithm that would purchase cars 100% sight unseen and speed up the process. Now, they should have referred to Zillow on this after they lost billions of dollars to figure out that there's some assets you cannot purchase sight unseen. So me, as well as thousands of people online, have taken their cars to Carvana and sold it to them for exorbitant amounts of money. Now, the scary thing was the fact that they never even checked the cars. The handful of times that I sold cars to Carvana, I would show up, I'd give them the keys, they would look at the VIN number, and then they would hand me a check and walk away. They wouldn't start the car, they wouldn't drive the car. And so we knew that they were basically not checking the cars. And there was tons of videos all over social media showing this. So people were selling thousands of cars that were absolute junk to these guys. Now, a lot of these forums had VIN numbers and stuff like that. So we started tracking them to see how they were being bought and how they're being sold, as well as we were watching what's called their buyers. Buyers are people that buy for dealer groups at auction. So they were buying cars for Carvana at the auction. So at the auction, I would pay, let's say, $28,000 for a certain vehicle. The Carvana people would pay typically more, anywhere from a few $1,000s over to exorbitant amounts, and we couldn't figure out why. But as we started tracking these VINs, we saw the same thing over and over again. A lot of the cars that we sold or they purchased at auction, 9 times out of 10 went back to the auction because they were absolute junk cars. But there were a handful of them that did go up for sale on Carvana's website. And some were actually listed for sale cheaper than what we sold it to them for, or what they purchased it at auction, which didn't make any sense. But the real funny thing was the fact that we found a lot of these cars sent over to drive time, which I'll show you why that's so important here in a little bit. But it just let me know that even with their buying model, it wasn't good. Now, I thought that the fact that they were buying ADESA, which is an auto auction, would help them scale off a lot of these issues, because now they have what's called recon centers. That was one of their big things. They had no place to do affordable recon. At that time, they were sending them out to all the drive time dealers. And I saw a lot of the drive time people taking them to I think it was like Pet Boys and a few other local auto repair shops, and that's how they were fixing these cars. So they couldn't keep up with the demand of buying and trying to sell cars online. But even after they purchased ADESA, they still couldn't buy or fix the cars correctly to get enough gross on the vehicles. So that was one of their major issues. Now let's move over to sales, which seemed to be a pretty easy thing for them because they were selling a lot of cars. The downfall was a lot of cars got sent back, and there was a lot of lawsuits because they misrepresented a lot of the things. If the car was a clean Carfax, no accidents, no issues, but people were getting multiple cars with accidents, damage, body panels falling off, mileage rollbacks, even stuff with VIN fraud. A lot of the VINs were not checked. If you can look up there, Carvana was accused of selling tons of stolen cars because they weren't checking the VIN numbers in the actual computer or the scanner. They were just buying them off of people and reselling them. But more importantly, it boils down to the actual finance and titling of the vehicle. This is where Carvana had so many problems that it issued tons of lawsuits, and they actually risked losing their actual license. Now, one of the main reasons why they were going to lose their dealer's license in multiple states was the fact that they could not get titles and registrations out to people on a certain time. Now, I can tell you as a dealer selling during a pandemic, Yes, there was a little bit of a slowdown when it came to issuing titles and to doing paperwork. But I have friends today that bought cars in 2022 that has still not have received their paperwork from Carvana, which is absolutely insane. There are hundreds of lawsuits all across the United States of people claiming they still haven't been able to register their cars, they haven't been able to get the titles for them, what's going on. And so this issue basically clamped down, and I know they were issued hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of fines across the United States from pending. They had to buy cars back, they had tons of issues, but that was just one of the first things. They didn't have the actual system set up to take care of titles and processing people's paperwork. This is where, once again, having processes and procedures in place as a dealer group would have been more important than just going out there and getting money from investors on Wall Street and trying to lead up as much market share as you possibly can. So let's talk about some of the financing issues that Carvana was having. Now, after selling these cars, remember, they had to sell cars for way over market value because they were overpaying for them from the auction and buying from people on the streets. They had to recon them, which is fix them to bring them up to standards to sell online because they got to get rid of them because they can't take them to auction and keep losing money, and they can't take them to other wholesalers to buy, so they got to fix them and retail them. So after dumping in all this money, let's say I have a $30,000 Jeep Wrangler, they'd be selling the exact same car for, let's say, $38,000 or $39,000. There'd be that much of a gap between a lot of cars, which you can check out right now on Car Gurus and a few of the other sites. So you can see the disparity between both sites. Now, the reason why their financing is so important because they had to get out of these cars. How do they do that? So every single dealership, whether it's an OEM like Ford, Honda, Toyota, or a big dealer group, or even a small independent dealer like myself, have these things called captive lenders. These are lenders that go above and beyond to try to help you buy some of your auto loans. Now, the reason why they do this is because they want to take majority of your business from you so they can keep buying auto loans so they can keep lending and make more money. But unfortunately with Carvana's is they figured out a way to how do I get out of all this negative equity when it comes to overpaying for cars. Now, you're not only going to see this with Carvana, you're going to see this with a lot of other auto groups and other OEMs because they were out there buying subprime banks for themselves because how do I not eat all this negative equity as car prices were falling? Because in the last year, prices are down about 25 to 35%. So if you're talking about, a few billions of dollars worth of cars, how do we write this off? How do we lower this hit? We're going to push it down the road with financing, and that's exactly what they did. So let's just say I have a Jeep Wrangler that's $30,000 and they have the exact same one for $39,000. Traditionally people would buy mine because it's cheaper, but if you have subprime credit, I can't get you financed, but they could. So they would push these people in more expensive cars with less down payments, being less qualified candidates, and they would kick that can down the road. Now that's an easy way to boost your sales, but unfortunately you're kicking the can down the road only so far before the payments start to fall off. And that's exactly what's happened. I've talked about the auto loan crisis being a real thing and how the ramifications are going to affect lenders across the board. We saw it in 2024. They changed the lending criteria completely. During the pandemic, as long as you had a pulse and a few bucks, they would give you a car 160, 170% LTV. They would finance 0% down, no job income proof, no problem, no resident proof, no problem. They just approve everybody. Now it's a complete 180. If you go buy a car now, you will see they'll ask you for pay stubs, proof of residence, references. They want to see your bank statements as well as your pay stubs and even your W-2s to make sure there's some sort of payment history or track record to make sure that you're going to qualify on your loan. There's another thing called DTI, which is debt to income. This is something very important. The reason why most banks stay to this is because inflation does come around every now and then. So as long as you stay to this matrix of debt to income, you'll be fine. So however much debt you have, that's what your payment is compared to your income. But banks threw that out the window, and that's why you see all these people that are so late and so delinquent on their cars, and that's why we have record high delinquencies across the United States, more higher than 2008, because people simply can't afford the cars because inflation got out of control, their insurance doubled, housing doubled, everything doubled. But anyways, so now that this boogeyman basically caught up to Carvana's paper, what are they to do? Well, they don't care. Banks typically send loans to each other and buy and sell. They're always buying and selling auto loan portfolios. That's just something they do, whether it's mortgages or auto loans. But when you get so much defaults, so much delinquencies, and so much deficiencies for when you buy a car to when you sell it at auction, how much money that gap is, banks did a 180. They're like, we don't want to take any of this bad paper. They don't want to deal with any of this stuff. And I bet you that's exactly what Ally did. Ally, I know, is one of the first banks to admit that they had almost a triple, if not double, increased rate of delinquencies of prime borrowers. Now that's prime borrowers. Now we're talking about subprime and deep subprime borrowers. You know that number's probably gone even higher. So the fact that they're carrying that much paper and they're buying it from Carvana lets me know that they don't want it anymore. And that's exactly what it says in the Hindenburg report, is that they can't shovel off a lot of this debt. So one of the things that they did was they sold off supposedly $800 million worth of auto loans to an unnamed third party. Now, I'm sure some other things are going to pop up here soon now that this has hit nationwide news and people are going to look into it. But this just shows the fact that we kept talking about it over and over again. The auto crisis is real. You cannot sell cars in this climate way over book. Banks are going to have to lose billions of dollars. Dealerships, manufacturers are going to lose billions of dollars as well because they have to eat up all that negative equity in their cars that are sitting on their lot. So now that everyone's got a reality check, I'm surprised that this is catered on as long as it has. When I did my first prediction about a year ago, I literally gave them till probably the middle of 2024 to get through all of this. With this new stuff coming to light, and I think a lot more investigations are going to go in there, you're going to see Carvana be flipped over and really looked at through a microscope. Now, I don't want Carvana to go out of business. I don't want to see anybody lose their jobs or anything like that. But when they start showing that the owners, I think, cleared out $3.6 billion of stock, well, remember when it was like $300? And then shortly after that, it dropped down to $9? That was crazy. And then once it went up, they bought back in, and supposedly they're going to be exiting out. So we'll see if these predictions come true from some of my financial friends. But this is what they're saying, is if they can exit with that much money and they're just kicking the can down the road, who's buying these bad auto loans? Because I know it's none of these banks. You know, how are they going to show a real profit? If they're selling overpriced cars with really bad auto loans, that's just a recipe for disaster. They're running out of money. I don't know how much their burn is and how long the runway is, especially after this report. If nobody keeps buying their auto loans, they're going to be dead in the water, because if you're overlending on your own cars just to inflate your sales numbers and nobody's buying those, you got to keep borrowing money to keep that dream going. And so, you know, I don't know what to say. Like I said, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but in the last 24 hours, I've gotten literally tons of messages from Carvana employees, other dealer groups, media companies, everybody asking my opinion. I've been following Carvana for quite some time. The business model to me never really made sense. And I said it a lot of times, and a lot of people are like, see, you're wrong. Carvana went up and their stock price is great. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, which is fine. I just see what the auto industry is telling me. And it's telling me right now that this thing is built on a house of cards. Now, I hope that I'm wrong. I don't want it to be right, because if Carvana falls, this is going to affect a lot of people. Even like, think about like Tesla. Tesla is another tech company that's overinflated in value when it comes to their cars. They're also in the auto industry. How is that going to affect them? How is this going to affect other people from selling their auto loan portfolio? Is everybody going to get a second look because, you know, Carvana was selling off billions of dollars worth of bad auto loan debt? This is, like I said, a big deal for everybody in our industry. And this is why so many people in my business are mad at Carvana, because they're literally setting us up to kick us back 10 years. It is almost impossible for automotive businesses to get money from hedge funds. Even myself have actually gone in front of hedge funds to get money to start up franchise dealerships, and they didn't want to do it because they were so afraid of what they've seen currently with Tesla, with Carvana, that they turned us down. So that just shows you that there's a lot of doubt in the automotive industry, even with people with years and decades of experience. So with this doubt, like I said, is going to lead to a lot of bad things. But once again, I would love to know your opinions on everything. Have you purchased a car from Carvana? Have you gotten your plates and your registration? Also, are you an investor in there? Did you know about some of the things they're doing? Are you worried about them bundling a majority of really bad to deep subprime loans that are not really performing? So what do you think of the father and son duo selling $3.6 billion in stocks right before it plummets? You know, I'd love to know your opinions down below. If you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me either by email. My email's down below. Also my Instagram @LuckyLopez, and we'll see you next time.